Ohio reporting another 202 COVID deaths today. Now, while that number is high, it is lower than what we saw last week at 217 last Tuesday. And the almost 4,500 new infections is actually far below the 3-week average. Lead investigator Brian Duggar joining us in studio tonight to break down some of those numbers and some of the things that we're seeing. So, Brian, let's talk a little bit first about what we're seeing as far as these new infections and the fact that that number is going down. What does that say to you?
Well, Jeff, I actually pulled the numbers from last year. When you looked at last year's numbers on October 12th, we had about 3,000 fewer cases than we did today. When you look at hospitalizations, over 2,500 fewer hospitalizations last year than we have right now. So, obviously, when you look at those numbers, it doesn't appear that we're doing that great. But, looking at the data, for the last 18 months, what it really does tell me is that we have to accept, I believe, that COVID-19 is going to be with us for a while, and we're going to need to learn to live with it. Now, the good news is the vaccine is doing a really good job. It's allowed people to go to those football games, those concerts, go out to eat pretty safely. So I think that's going to be the key. So I think we just kind of need to accept that it's going to be with us for a while.
Brian, I know the first quarter is coming to an end for schools here around the region. So let's talk about schools and what they have had to kind of muster through here in the first few months of the new school year. Are we seeing the cases start to trend down as far as the schools are concerned?
Yeah, we really have. For the last several weeks, we've seen the numbers go down. Last week there were about 200 fewer infections in the school than the week before. And I think when the numbers come out this Thursday, we'll probably see them go down even more. Now, the really good news is when you look at hospitalizations, for those between the ages of 0 and 17, this week those numbers dropped to 110. They were about 135 last week. In 20 to 29, those numbers are down to about 140. Last week, they're nearly 200. So we are seeing good progress in the younger Ohioans.
All right, Brian, our last question. We got about 45 seconds left or so. Wondering about high transmission around our counties and what we're looking at locally, because I'm still walking into the building every day wearing my mask. So are we still in that same scenario at this point?
Yeah, Jeff, locally it's really interesting because last week when you looked at the case numbers, Ohio is down about 10%, but you look locally, we're actually up about 2.5%. And I think a lot of that has to do with Michigan. Michigan is one of the few states that is actually seeing an increase at this point. And this happened earlier in the year. They went up. Northwest Ohio went up, and I think the same thing's happening now.
And their vaccination numbers are better, aren't they?
They are a little bit better than Ohio.
Boy, go figure, right?
Yeah, but one good thing I will tell you, when you're looking at the positivity rate, locally it actually has dropped over the past week, so that's a positive sign.
All right, Brian Duggar diving into those numbers for us. We appreciate it. Good to see you as always. And if you want to get vaccinated, the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department is hosting walk-in clinics the rest of the week from 9 until 4. They also have Pfizer booster shots available on certain days. We've got an updated list of weekly walk-in clinics over at WTOL.com. Melissa?